Hey, this video is for anybody who's looking to purchase a semi-automatic pistol. I just want to go over a couple things to know so you know what to choose. Hopefully you have somebody that you trust, that you go shooting with, that knows something about guns, can help you out. I'm just going to go over a couple things that you might find helpful. All right. So starting off, what we have here is the Colt 1911 45 caliber ACP. ACP actually does stand for Auto Colt Pistol. Here we have a Beretta 92X in 9mm. We have a Glock 43, also a 9mm. This is a Smith & Wesson M&P 5.0 in 9mm. And this is a Walther PPK. This is the James Bond gun in 380. And this is a Walther P38, also a 9mm. This one replaced the Ruger for World War II. And these are two German guns. So, what kind of pistols do we have here? These two are Hammer single action semi-automatic pistols. These are hammerless single action semi-automatic pistols. These are hammered double action automatic pistols. This has a safety, this has a safety, this does not. This has a safety. This has a decocker and a safety, and this also has a decocker and a safety. I believe Berettas do come with the decocker and a safety. Berettas also come in, certain models of this 92 also comes with double action, but this particular one doesn't. The reason why I actually bought this one over the standard 92 is because it does have a safety in a different place and it does not have a decocker. Now we'll go over that in a minute. What are the main differences between a single action and a double action? A single action simply means the gun is cocked. When I pull the trigger, all it does is drop the hammer. If I pull the trigger again, it doesn't do anything to that hammer. So it has to fire around, push the hammer back, and then the trigger's only going to do one action. Drop that hammer. That's called a single action. What is a double action? A double action is if I cock it and I pull the trigger and drops the hammer, even if it doesn't fire around, if I pull the trigger again, it does one action. It does the first action, which pulls the hammer back, and then the second action drops the hammer. That is why it's called a double action. And you'll hear a lot of old or newer pistols considered double action when you talk about revolvers, and then older ones are single action. So this is also a double action, meaning that the hammer will pull back and drop. That's two actions when I pull the trigger. So those are double actions. What's the difference between a safety and a decocker? All right, so if I pull the hammers back here, and I pull the hammer back here on this one, and we'll pull the hammer back on this one, and we'll pull the hammer back on this one. Okay, now if I'm going to holster this and I put the safety on, I holster it and the hammer's still back. Same thing here. Put the safety on, hammer's still back. Put it in my holster. Now with the PPK, when I put this down to put it in safe, it actually drops the hammer, not onto the bullet, but it decocks it, and there's a mechanism in here that shields it from the bullet, so it won't fire. Same thing with the P38. It's a decocker, right? Now if I pull the trigger, nothing happens. All these guns are on safe at this point. So I'd have to take it off safe, pull the trigger, drops the hammer, off safe, pulls the trigger, drops the hammer, and here I push this up, see the trigger go forward, that means it's ready to fire, and I keep on doing that because it's double action. Same thing as the PPK, the Walther P38, does the same thing. It's ready to fire at that point. So I can fire and then put it back on safe if I want. And see how the hammer is dropped like that. Now if it's on safe and it's in my holster, I pull it out, I take the safety off, I can continue firing. As you can see on safe, I can't, it's not going to drop the hammer, right? All right, so that's the difference there. Now between the auto loaders, I'm sorry, the hammerless, is that everything happens inside of the slide here. So that's the safety for the M&P. I pull the trigger, nothing happens. I take the safety off, and there you go. So what does that look like inside? What happens is that this is spring-loaded back here. So this little mechanism, when you cock it, it gets set back, and then it gets released. And the way it gets released is a mechanism in here pushes this back, pushes this up, and that thing fires a pin into the primer of the bullet. So that's how a hammerless autoloader works. Now, how does a hammered autoloader work? On semi-automatic, basically same thing. So Beretta was a part very similar. Oops, knocked the camera around. Now this is a little bit different. In the Beretta, this little indent here, or well, this actually the pin, this will sit back here. Now you don't ever do this. I'm only going to do it for demonstration. But what would happen is when you pull the trigger, that hammer hits the pin, back of the pin here. When you hit the back of the pin here, it will fire onto the primer of the bullet sitting in the barrel. Oh, probably should lock that. So here's a little mechanism to lock it. So there we go. So that's pretty much the differences with the internals of these weapons. There was a movie, and let's see if you can put it in the comments and guess what movie it was. So there was a movie where it shows, and that's why it's hard for me to watch movies, although I really like this one movie, but it kind of annoyed me. And it shows the sheriff pull out his gun. They do a close-up on his semi-automatic pistol, and then he pulls the hammer back, and then he goes into the hotel room. And I'm like, wait a second. So if you have a bullet chambered in there, and you have the safety, at some point you lowered the hammer and then put it into your holster. We call that half-cocked, right? So then you're half-cocked, and then you come out and pull your hammer back. That's nobody does that, right? It's just not, nobody would carry a gun like that. So that I know I think it's the Coen brothers. Oh, I almost gave away the movie. I'll give you another hint. It's a hotel in El Paso. But yeah, if you watch that scene, he pulls it out and he pulls the hammer back on a semi-automatic pistol. Now, if you do that with a revolver, I get it. But with a semi-automatic pistol, I mean, come on. It's not even close to being realistic. But anyway, all right. Let's see. Yeah, so this is basically how the mechanisms work. And I'll just show you real quick. These are called snap caps. They're basically fake bullets. So if you're new to firearms, I would highly suggest buying these and practicing with them. And I'll just show you kind of how the action works here on the Glock. So basically, you know, nothing happens when I pull the trigger there. I pull the trigger, I got nothing, right? So I'd have to get around in there, pull the trigger, and it's going to eject around. Pull the trigger, it will fire and eject the next round. And by the way, let me take this out, take the round out. When you do handle these pistols, another thing that drives me crazy is when people go like this. Oh, I'm in a movie. I'm going to do that because that's what the movies do. Handle these guns like this. You snap it. They're metal. Explosions happen inside of these guns. They can take it. So do a little snap and then fire. Because if you ride it back, you could cause a misfire. So you always want to just make sure it's in there. Believe me, there's a round in there. See that? Same thing like with the Trijicon sight on here. Love the Trijicon. Very expensive, but very high quality. It dims, it brightens depending on what kind of room you're in. I saw somebody using this actual gun when we were on the range, and they're racking it like this. Crazy, right? They had their hands on it, and the reason why that cringed me out is, look at that barrel. If you get your hand caught in there, you're gonna feel that, right? So I have two ways I rack this gun. Either grab the front here and just push it back like that, but my preferred method is actually just pushing that Trijicon back. The sight is tough, it's not gonna ruin it. It's actually made for that, and that's how I do that. Of course, it takes a little practice. Once you, if you do buy a firearm and you start getting used to it, you'll get that down, and it'll be like muscle memory. So anyway, I just want to go over this format of a pistol, explain a little bit the differences between the different types, get to know the nomenclature, look around, talk to your gun people, and see which one you would like. In my opinion, they're all great. I enjoy them all. These two are more for just, you know, this is World War II era. It's not very dependable, so I wouldn't carry that. This is just cool because it's a James Bond gun. 1911, I mean, it's not just for old guys anymore. You know, these are just cool guns. They're the John Browning original, especially when you get a Colt. I mean, that's it right there, right? The government model. And then these are my bedside guns, very dependable, holds a lot of rounds. And this is my carry gun. I don't carry open, I carry concealed. So I like this Glock 43X. It's super dependable and easy to conceal. So that's my purposes for these guns. I hope you got something out of this. And if you know what movie I'm talking about, I gave a couple of hints. Put it in the comments. The one where the sheriff cocks his semi-automatic gun, as if that ever happens. Anyway, cheers. Talk to you all later. What's today's date? It's September 5th. Today is September 5th. It is Thursday night. Goodbye.